Why do right-wing people love AI slop? Like, why are they gooning for it? Because there's something way more interesting happening here than sweaty tech bros following trends, and there's something embarrassingly revealing about the specific way conservatives have latched onto AI slop. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about this. Here's what I think. Come closer. Closer. I think they lack talent. I think they have no curiosity. And I think they are devoid of creativity. And I know that they know that lying is the only way to make their arguments. Because this didn't happen.
I'm a woman! Get out of my way! Boo! You hear me? Nobody tells me where I can walk!
And Trump doesn't look like that. Oh. Donald, Joanne, Trump. I'm Dr. Caelan Conrad. You're in my fucking house for some reason, and as punishment, I'm going to explain to you why every fucking right-wing dirtbag has his or her dick inside a toaster, and it is charcoal. Part 1, the generation. Okay, so I want to be sensitive here because this is the part where someone clips 30 seconds of this video and posts it with the caption, leftist YouTuber calls conservatives stupid. And like, feel free to post that, I'm going to, because they are, or at least there is a specific, identifiable, documented pattern of intellectual shallowness that has been deliberately cultivated on the right for years. And AI fits into that pattern so perfectly, it's almost like it was designed for it. Sort of like how the chin is a perfect ball shelf. Crazy how stuff like that happens. Coincidence or proof of the Matrix? Neither. So let's talk about what happens when you're trained to never have a thought deeper than, well, actually just trained to never actually have to think a thought. If you grew up in a conservative media ecosystem, like most people did, you probably know what conservative pundits sound like. Confident and certain that everything is simple and aligns with their worldview, even when they're wrong. And anyone who tells you it's more complicated than that is either an idiot or lying to you. And their opinions, as my racist grandma used to say, were fake and gay. Rush Limbaugh built a radio empire on that feeling. Fox News built a television empire on it. The entire right-wing media machine, from Jolene Rogaine to Breitbart to whatever podcast your unwashed uncle won't stop mentioning, runs on the same fuel. Really just one concept entirely. Simple, easy to understand answers as to why the world sucks and it's someone else's fault, but the right will make it better, and probably already has. And that's actually really good product design if you're trying to convince someone to listen to you. People love being told that they're right and that nothing is their fault. Watch. Come closer. Closer. I want you to picture the last argument you had with someone that left you feeling bad about yourself. I have to tell you, you were right the entire time. And the fact that they even tried to argue with you is ridiculous. And I don't know what their problem is, but it isn't on you. This is all on them. Don't even give it a second thought. Just because you said gay people should be strung up in the street like in Gilead doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. Feels kind of nice, isn't it? Comforting. Like, oh, you're right. I shouldn't give it a second thought. Even one thought was too much, actually. Meanwhile, the left's version of political media is often like a 13-hour video essay with 4 million views on why you shouldn't watch the new Harry Potter, even if you're a Griffin Tufflin. Anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, here's a message from today's sponsor. I'm poor. Constantly being told that you shouldn't believe your eyes and instead believe their lies, it trains you out of your curiosity until it atrophies. It trains you to believe that having an answer handed to you, even if it's the wrong answer, is the same thing as thinking and coming to a conclusion based on the evidence. It trains you to feel rewarded by being told what to think. And that's why they'll believe anything their daddy says, even when they know it isn't true. And once that's how your brain processes information, you are perfectly primed for AI slop, whether it's some garbage TikTok video or ChatGPT's sycophantic dribble. Because giving you a confident answer, despite it being entirely likely it's been made up whole cloth, is what conservative thought leaders do for them. And also that's exactly what AI does for them. It's asking daddy why the sky is blue when daddy doesn't fucking know. He's a goddamn carpet salesman, so he makes some shit up, but he sounds confident, more eloquent than you, and just believing him requires absolutely zero engagement from you beyond asking the question itself. You don't have to read any books. You don't have to sit with any uncertainty either about his answer or how it fits with your previous understanding of the world. You don't have to encounter an idea that makes you uncomfortable and then actually wrestle with it. Conservatives, they're a lot like sub-bottoms in that way, just more evil. They ask for it, they take it, they like it, and then they say thank you as you leave them covered in load-bearing ignorance. And the worst kind of ignorance, willful. I've seen people say they will do research by grokking something now instead of Googling it, and that's a problem. Say someone, gorgeous, funny, popular, opened Google and typed in, "A leftist told me that Trump racist. Explain me 5 ways that not true." Google might have come up with this, which it did. A Wikipedia link to the racial views of Donald Trump with a preview for the page that reads, "A history of speech and actions that have been viewed by scholars and the public as racist or sympathetic to white supremacy." This is followed by a basically infinite number of pages demonstrating and documenting his racism. But if that same hilarious, pretty intelligent person asked the same thing of, like, grok, it might have a different answer. Like this answer it had. "Here are 5 evidence-based reasons why..." Oh, in my head, grok sounds like that. "Here are 5 evidence-based reasons why the claim that Donald Trump is racist doesn't hold up under scrutiny. 1. Historic low black unemployment and poverty rates under his presidency." I don't know if that's true. 2. Trump has repeatedly stated he's the least racist person. Well, case closed. Pack it up, boys. Another win for Team Us. Trump received endorsements from prominent black conservatives like Ben Carson, Tim Scott, and Kanye West, who called him a father figure. In 2020, he won 12% of the black vote. See? How could he be racist when 90% of black people didn't vote for him? Don't think about it, because I won't. 4. No evidence in core racism allegations like Central Park 5. That's right. This fucking toaster used the Central Park 5 as evidence that Trump isn't racist. You get it, I'm done with this. They say they're doing their research, but they're not even using it as a research tool to find sources, which it would also probably make up. They're using it as a validation tool. Welcome to the stage, Echo Chambers. They start with the conclusion they've been told they should believe, and they're asking anyone, Trump, God, AI, whoever, to explain to them why they believe that, because they don't possess the ability to critically examine their own understanding of the world. Oh, Trump? God? AI. The left's intellectual culture, in comparison, tends to valorize the process of thinking itself. Maybe too much. The reading, the debating, the updating of positions and terminology. I have all sorts of feelings about how that comes off and who gets left out because of that, but I would always rather talk to a smug leftist that sneers at people that don't read theory than someone who thinks ICE murdering people is actually hilarious, actually. Because that more, I don't know, like academic culture of the left on its best day treats curiosity as a virtue. The right's intellectual culture on its best day treats curiosity as dangerous. Asking too many questions means you're weak. Changing your mind means you've been manipulated. Any uncertainty means, I don't know, something to do with fluoride. And watch out, because the libs with their books and their gays, prides, parades are probably just trying to confuse you with big words like intersectionality or empathy or soap. The right fosters a kind of sense of safety in being incurious. The right just wants to be handed reasons to believe the version of reality they already preferred, whether it's coming from the brave little poster or the brave little toaster. And that's not because they're stupid, even if they are, and they often, always, often are. It's because they're often fucking lazy, intellectually, emotionally, fundamentally. And that laziness, that sloth heretofore not witnessed by man since the writing of the Bible, is also why, instead of learning to make art themselves, they've skipped the middleman, by which I mean creativity, and embraced never having to learn or think or grow instead. It's much easier than the alternative, especially when your brain's neural pathways are just hair soup at this point. The modern right has built an entire cultural identity around the romance of earned achievement, hard work, discipline, the dignity of mastery of a trade. We are the farmers, the carpenters, the athletes, the soldiers, the ones who work hard to get what they want, who don't accept handouts. These are the values they campaign on, lecture on, and invoke whenever the subject of welfare or student debt relief or any other form of assistance arises. The argument is always the same. Nothing worth having comes without effort. And yet, faced with the barrier to creation, effort, they reached immediately and instinctively for the shortcut. Learning to draw is hard. It requires years of patience, humbling practice, the willingness to be wrong, to be clumsy, to produce work that falls short of your intentions, and to keep going anyway. Skilled illustrators and artists spend lifetimes developing a visual vocabulary. The people now generating propaganda images have opted out of all of this. And this, it turns out, fits perfectly with everything else about them, because the intellectual laziness is just as pronounced. The contemporary right does not, as a rule, engage seriously with opposing arguments. It does not read the literature on the policies it opposes. It does not grapple with data that shows its flaws, does not sit with difficult questions. And that need to construct their own reality around them that affirms their views and makes them feel safe and unchallenged, it is why AI is so beloved by them. If you look at the art they're making, it almost always has one thing in common: an attempt at hyperrealism. They want figures rendered with photographic fidelity, textures and lighting that mimic the documentary image, scenes that present themselves as captures of reality rather than constructions of it. And this preference is not coincidental. Art often makes an argument, a painting, a drawing, a political cartoon. These are transparently the product of a human perspective, a set of choices about what to include and exclude, emphasize or minimize. They wear their subjectivity openly. You can agree or disagree with them. You can interrogate the point of view. A photograph, by contrast, carries the cultural authority of the eyewitness. It says, this is what was there. This is what happened. The camera, we still half believe despite knowing better, does not lie. The right does not want art. Art asks you to think. Art declares itself an interpretation and invites you to evaluate it. What the right wants is a camera, but a camera that can be aimed at realities that do not exist. A camera that can show you the world as you have decided it must be, with the unimpeachable authority of the documentary image. AI hyperrealism for them is not a stylistic preference. It is an epistemological one. It is the visual expression of a movement that does not want to argue for its version of reality. It wants to simply present it, sealed and finished, as though the question of whether or not it's true has already been settled by the fact of its apparent visibility. This is why the arguments about image and video generation being the democratization of art ring so hollow. The claim is made earnestly by AI advocates and adopted opportunistically by the right, and they say that these tools put creative power in the hands of people who previously lacked access to it, that the barrier of technical skill was a kind of gatekeeping, and that removing it liberates expression. But what has actually been liberated is not creativity. Creativity involves making choices, developing a voice, learning through failure what you are actually trying to say. None of that is happening here. What has been liberated is the capacity to fabricate, at scale and at speed, images that look like evidence. That is not democratizing art. It is just accelerating and accentuating a lie. And that is why they love AI. But also, these artless, tasteless, nasty little fuckers just have terrible fucking taste. Part 2. What's art got to do with it? Do you know the welfare queen? The welfare queen? The welfare queen. If you don't know the archetype or stereotype of the welfare queen, she was a figure that Ronald Rolling Reagan loved to bring up on the campaign trail. A woman, almost always black, who was gaming the welfare system, driving a Cadillac, living lavishly on your tax dollars, laughing at you. She was everywhere in conservative rhetoric, and still is. She was in speeches, she was in newspapers, she was the justification for gutting social programs that millions of real people actually depended on. And she was, for all meaningful purposes, fictional. Like, there were real cases of welfare fraud, obviously. And that's hilarious. There are real cases of fraud in every system that has ever existed because humans are humans and humans like getting free shit. I know I do. But the idea that this was a widespread issue was entirely an invention of the racist right. Ooh, redundancy. The welfare queen wasn't ever meant to be a person. She was meant to be a warning, a spooky bedtime story for people who hate Black people. A warning about what happens when you're too generous, when you help people who don't help themselves, when you let empathy affect policy. And it worked because it confirmed something a bunch of conservatives already felt to be true. And that feeling is more powerful for them than any statistic you can throw at it to debunk it. This is a very old technique. Older than Reagan, older than America, older than God, who is like what? 4,000? Reagan, America, God. Oh, I got Reagan in 2004. Never mind. It works comme ça. You either find the most extreme, most unsympathetic, most easy to hate version of the people you're arguing against, or you invent one if you can't find one, and then you hold it up and you say, this is who they all are. This is what they want. This is what you're defending if you disagree with me. These days, it's often the campus cry bully, the triggerable snowflake, the feminist who wants to destroy masculinity, toxic or otherwise. The 10-foot-tall trans activist with a beard and a wig who will not rest until your children are cutting off their woman's breasts. None of these are real people in the way they're being presented. Some of them are based on real incidents that got wildly distorted. Some of them are just completely made up and then repeated until they calcified into accepted truth. All of them serve the same function. They give you the enemy they need you to believe exists. And the super great thing about all these archetypes is they can't fight back. The welfare queen can't talk back at all. She's not real. The campus crybully filmed during a debate exists only in the moment of her most uncharitable interpretation. You never have to engage with what she actually believes or why or what experiences produce those beliefs. You just have to point at her as a distraction and let people to be driven to do what you want them to do through motivated contempt. It is a debate with a scarecrow, and you win every time because you built the scarecrow yourself. For most of the history of this technique, you needed something real to distort. Not much, but something. Reagan needed at least one actual fraud case to extrapolate from. The campus crybully needed at least one viral video of one college student having one bad moment to build the mythology around. The technique required, at minimum, a seed. A grain of reality that you could then grow into something monstrous and unrecognizable. That limiting factor is gone. They never got sick of recycling the same woman's face for the last 10 years, and they would have done it for another 10. But now they don't need to, because now they can open up an image generator and type blue-haired woman crying at a liberal political rally, holding a sign about the wage gap while holding iPhone. Photorealistic. Make sure she's fucking fat. And 30 seconds later, you have her. She's there. She exists. She has a face and tears and that sloppy AI righteous anger that the archetype always supposedly had, but never quite had a face for until now. Again, because it didn't exist. And again, because they can't make art. They don't make art. This is conservative art. This is political conservative art. I have this tattoo that says your art matters. And I just want to be very clear that I'm not talking about Ben fucking Garrison, baby. Your art is garbage and so are you. And I cannot wait to have you on my podcast. Ben Garrison. My podcast is called Respect the Dead, and we only talk about dead people, so extrapolate from that what you will, and you will. So, because people on the right are often lazy, craven, talentless hacks who can't ever defend a single one of their policies or actions without lying, they generate an image or video of someone to use as evidence to support their often fascist ideals. And that's what happened recently with the welfare queen. Let's watch it now.
It's been day 5 and I have not received no food stamps. My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching a video and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you.
This is an AI video made to incite a racist, classist, misogynistic rage among the right. And it wasn't the only one that got made.
Why the fuck I can't get hot Cheetos in here. Let me get the Cardi B clause and run this on EBT, boo. I only need like $6 worth. Put it on produce.
EBT don't work for gas, ma'am.
It's corn-based ethanol. That's a vegetable, deadass.
Ma'am, we don't take food stamps for electronics.
Apple's a fruit, juice is a fruit, iPad just extra fiber, deadass.
Take EBT, right?
Ma'am, no.
Excuse me! First of all, don't be yelling at me!
This was all reported on uncritically by Fox News as real. SNAP beneficiaries threatened to ransack stores over government shutdown. One mother claims taxpayers must feed her children as SNAP benefits face cuts. The user went on to ask how she was supposed to feed her 7 children. I have 7 different baby daddies and none of them no good for me, she said. Alba, you soup brain freak. Alba. Fox News. Fox went on to silently change the headline to AI videos of SNAP beneficiaries complaining about cuts go viral. Oh, they went viral? I wonder how that happened. I find the cognitive dissonance required to generate a video like this genuinely unhinged in a way I cannot stop thinking about. Like, I feel like they're missing the extremely obvious thing they're telling us. Because, like, they made this, so they know she isn't real. But by making it, they're telling us something they are only accidentally admitting. They're telling us that they looked for the real version of her and couldn't find it. They're telling us that the movements they're so furious about, the ideologies they're so threatened by, the people they spend every waking hour warning you about, don't actually behave the way they need them to behave to make their arguments work. Not in the numbers they're claiming, and not to the degree they're yapping about. The straw man used to be a rhetorical device, a figure of speech. Now it has a face you can actually see. Now it has tears running down its uncanny valley cheeks. Sometimes, a real person's cheeks. When federal agents arrested Minneapolis civil rights lawyer Nakima Levy Armstrong a few months back, one of those pieces of shits filmed the moment, promising it's not going to be on Twitter. Only hours later, now ex-Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem proved him wrong, posting a still of a visibly calm Armstrong on Twitter. Then the White House account posted something else entirely. Clearly the same image, but clearly not at all the same image. The caption read, "Arrested, far-left agitator Nakima Levy Armstrong for orchestrating church riots in Minnesota." In it, Armstrong is depicted sobbing, her skin darkened. The federal government, the White House account, publishing a racist deepfake of a woman they had just arrested, just to make sure she looked weak enough. This wasn't a meme. It wasn't intended to be funny. This was a deepfake of a political rival intended to humiliate her and take away her power. She was composed during her arrest. She was strong, but they needed her to be weak. They needed her to be a warning, the face of regret, not a dignified political figure one could rally around. They needed her to look defeated, so it would look like they had won. Their need to do this shows their own fear. It proves that they feel they need to lie about the strength of their opponents. But also proves something else to be true. That the right is comfortable being lied to, even after it's exposed, as long as it means they don't have to think. And again, AI fits into that mold extremely well. And obviously, it was exposed. The original photo was online. People can compare them. But in response to that exposure, the White House Deputy Communications Director, with a name he doesn't deserve, Caelan, offered this. Enforcement of the law will continue. The memes will continue. Caelan? Not me. He's outright telling his base, we are going to continue to lie to you. You are going to continue to believe us and like it. And it's bordering on ridiculous because it's not even just that they need AI to humiliate their opponents or to generate shadows on the cave wall to be scared of. They need it to rewrite reality about their heroes as well. If you spent any time in right-wing internet spaces, you've seen the other side of this AI slop phenomenon. I'll admit something. I find some of this camp in a way that actually tickles me pinkles a bit. I don't think it's art, and I don't think it's good, and I don't think it's not cringe, but I do think it's bad in a way that, like, kind of feels kind of... What's the word for when something makes you condescendingly empathetic? Like, say, how you'd feel maybe if someone were to draw a horse. And you looked at it, and you were like, yeah, that looks like a horse, I guess. Not a good horse, but I can tell you tried, even if maybe you shouldn't have. So mother's gonna put it up on the back of the fridge. Why do they need to see Trump as Superman or a Roman emperor? Why do they need him to be more masculine, more attractive, younger, less disgusting and haggard and frail and disgusting and gross? These images get hundreds of thousands of shares, and thinking about it really made me need to sit down for a second because again, the fact that this was even generated tells you something fascinating about what's actually going on psychologically here. These are not people who see Superman when they look at Donald Trump, the actual real human Donald Joanne Trump. They do know this haggard freak doesn't look like that. But they're not sharing those images as documentation. They're not sharing them as journalism. This is myth making. They're trying to rewrite reality. And that's my little huge crux. What I think is the main function AI now serves in right-wing spaces. It's a myth generator. You feed it your values, your heroes and enemies, your fears, and it spits back this vivid, high-resolution, visually convincing story about the world as you wish it were. And the reason this works, the reason it spreads, is because the right has always been more comfortable with a false mythology than the left usually is. Think about the political imagery the left tends to produce and propagate. It's photographic, it's documentary, it's protesters in the street, it's data visualizations, it's real faces of real people who are actually suffering from actually real things. The aesthetic is fundamentally grounded in reality because the entire argument depends on reality being what it is. The right's political imagery has always leaned the other way, trying to push a visage of power to create an icon that represents the values they claim to have. And AI makes this possible in the way the right adores fast, cheap, and built off the labor of unpaid, faceless people they don't care about. And if it harms the environment in some way, that's just a fucking little boat of bonus gravy, baby. They don't care that it's convincing children to kill themselves, convincing people of things that lead them to kill others. They've told me as much in the comments of the videos I've done reporting on these needless, sickening tragedies, where a child will ask an AI chatbot the best way to take their own life, and it'll tell them the way that will make their body the most attractive when their parents find it. This is the machine they think is going to democratize the world. And that sucks. And it sucks for everyone, because now people with the least amount of creativity can produce filth at breakneck speeds and bukkake the internet with their rancid load of propagandic slop. Like you used to need a painter or a skilled graphic designer, or at minimum, someone who knew what they were doing in Photoshop. And those things took time. Now all you need is a sentence. Donald Trump as a heroic Roman general, dramatic lighting, hyper-realistic. He needs to have visible arm veins and a bulge. Please do not forget the bulge. His feet must be visible. All 10 piggies, or I'm going to have to tell you to start again. And 30 seconds later, you have a piece of political propaganda that would have taken a professional weeks to make look this bad. And it is everywhere before anyone can even process what they're looking at. But here's what I find genuinely kind of sad about it, by which I obviously mean hilarious. Those images are aspirational in a way that reveals total disappointment. Nobody generates an image of something they already have. They don't make AI art to depict reality. They generate the world they wish existed, the version of their hero who actually measures up to what they need him to be. Every image of Trump as a glowing demigod is a quiet admission that the real one isn't good enough. They're saying, I need the myth because the reality is just not fucking cutting it. And they don't even realize that's what they're saying because the soup is not sentient. So they lie to themselves and us and each other over and over again until this image is equated in their minds with Trump, who I must reiterate, does not look like this. They go to AI and they ask for a lie. And AI will give you that. AI will always give you that. It will generate the emperor, the superhero, the Rip Daddy Trump that you can ride like a tank into battle. And it'll give it to you as many times as you care to ask, instantly, forever. And it never gets tired of telling you what you want to hear. Which, now that I think about it, is pretty much the whole thing, isn't it? Part 3. I like 'em stupid. The AI images, the Trump is Superman mythology, the generated crying liberals, the instant, confident answers to questions nobody actually sat with. None of this exists in a vacuum. None of this is just a weird internet aesthetic that conservatives happened to adopt because they thought it looked cool. This is all built on the foundation of conservative politics. It's all seated on one huge load. bearing concept. And it's something I like to call anti-intellectualism. And I like to call it that because of that's what it's called. I guess we could call it AI for short, but that might get a little confusing, although they are both a form of artificial intelligence. Curious. Listen. I'm not saying conservative people can't think. I'm saying they don't. I'm saying that the conservative political project, the specific ideological machine that has been running in America and increasingly across the Western world for the last several decades, has a fundamental problem, which is that most of, if not all of its core positions, do not survive impact with scrutiny, not sustained, genuine, good faith scrutiny applied by someone who actually knows things. Trickle-down economics has had how many years of real-world testing, and the results are not great. But still, they're waiting on the bathroom floor, mouth gaped, waiting for a little of daddy's trickle to come down. The arguments against climate science require you to disbelieve an almost incomprehensible amount of scientific consensus. The social hierarchies that conservative politics tends to defend around race, gender, and class become very difficult to justify the moment you seriously engage with how the history of those hierarchies were constructed and who they benefit. This is not me saying the left is always right. No group is. But there is an asymmetry here, and the asymmetry is that one side's arguments get stronger the more you know, and one side's arguments get weaker. And the side whose arguments get weaker, they figured that out early, and then made a decision. It was a slow, emergent, evolutionary decision made over decades of figuring out what works and what doesn't, but it was still a decision, or like a lot of decisions. And what works for the right is making sure people don't know too much. So you get the defunding of public education, you get the sneering at universities as Marxist, communist, trans indoctrination factories, hot, and you get, you don't need a degree, college is a scam, which is, and I want to be fair, sometimes true, especially the one I went to, and also all of them in a narrow financial sense, but is deployed almost exclusively to mean stop going to places where people will teach you to think critically. You get don't trust experts, you get mainstream media lies, you get do your own research, which sounds like an endorsement of curiosity, but actually means go down this specific rabbit hole I've pre-selected for you and don't you fucking come back until you agree with me. You get an entire epistemological ecosystem designed to make the people inside it unreachable by evidence, willing to be lied to lie, and accepting that their ideology requires both of them. And AI fits so perfectly in that, it's almost horrifying. Because think about what AI does to the process of forming an opinion. Normally, in the before times, in the old world, if you wanted to have an informed position on something, you had to do something uncomfortable. Read. You had to read things written by people who disagreed with you. You had to encounter arguments you couldn't immediately dismiss. You had to sit with the possibility that you were wrong about something, maybe for weeks, maybe longer, while you figured out what you actually thought. That process is called learning. And it is genuinely unpleasant sometimes, but it is also the only way to actually know things. AI removes that process entirely. Who needs it? You don't have to read feminist theory to have a 96 point rebuttal of feminist theory. You don't have to understand what critical race theory actually argues, which, for the record, approximately 0 of the people furious about it actually do. You don't have to know anything. You just have to have the toaster lie to you. And it will, because all toasters are evil, and all toasters go to hell. And the answer you get comes back immediately, sounding close enough to educated that they feel like they can go toe-to-toe with actual academics. People who dedicated their lives to understanding the very thing they just asked a chatbot about in 30 seconds. They want the aesthetic of having learned, engaged, and then formed their own novel opinions without any of the work. They are so desperate to sound like the academics they hate that they give up their own voices. It's embarrassing. Like, sir, get off the floor and stop begging to be taken seriously. It's so uncomfortable. Go read a book. I know, I hate it too. But at least occasionally you gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do something awful. Like thinking. But they won't. Because they're not meant to. Because this isn't just about individual people being intellectually lazy. That would be fine. That would be just a personal failing. We all have those. Like, for instance, I'm annoying. And I'm amazing at it. And being too amazing in general is one of my biggest flaws. I guess what I'm saying is that when you have an army of people trained to be lied to and like it, you've got a prime user base for generative AI. And when you train people out of the skills that help you identify manipulation, like curiosity, sustained attention, comfort with uncertainty, the willingness to not know something yet, You have someone who is perfectly managed, perfectly contained within a reality that was constructed for them by people who understand that the easiest way to have someone believe you won an argument is to make sure they don't understand how arguments work. We are living through a moment where lies have never been cheaper to produce and never been harder to spot. It's scary. That's not hyperbole either. The technology that makes a photorealistic image of something that never happened costs nothing. It takes 30 seconds. It produces something your brain will process as real before your conscious mind even has a chance to intervene. The technology that generates confident, fluent, well-structured arguments for positions that collapse under scrutiny is free and available to everyone and almost sounds like someone who did the reading. And the people who benefit most from you not being able to tell the difference have noticed. So what do we even do with that? What do you actually do with that? Because I'm aware that question everything as advice is both entirely correct and almost completely useless. I could say that the next time someone tells you it's not that deep, you need to understand what they're actually saying. They're not being chill. They're not offering you relief from overthinking. They're telling you to stop thinking. It's not that deep is a way of making intellectual curiosity seem like a personality flaw. It is anti-intellectualism with like a relaxed affect. And it is everywhere. And it works. So I guess that all we can do is get intimate with the uncertainty and follow the thread even when someone tells you it's not that deep. Or especially when someone tells you it's not that deep. Because it often is. I'm personally going to keep making my own art. For example, I have a horror audio drama coming out this year that takes the real dangers of AI grooming and pushing people to hurt themselves or others and forces people to examine if they'd be so dismissive of it if it were a person causing all the harm. It's called Welcome to Isaiah, and the crowdfunding for it went amazing, and you should follow the channel on YouTube and social media so you can stay up to date when it's released. And actually, if you're a fan of the channel, please do. It would mean a lot to me. It's in the description and up here somewhere. There's like a little card you can click on probably. Watch the trailer, subscribe, leave a comment. I'm currently working on a few investigations, so if you want to follow along with those and get secret information not available anywhere else, you can sign up for a membership on Patreon or YouTube and see them happening live on my members Discord. Please do. My tax bill this year is about to send me into an early grave. Sharing this video, even to your own email, tells stupid YouTube that this video is worth watching. So after liking and subscribing, do me a huge favor and do that. And don't put anything about the algorithm in your comment. They're listening. Check out my podcast, Respect the Dead, where we talk shit about dead people who sucked, like Fred Christ Trump, that's a real name, Charlie Kirk, Elon Musk granddaddy, motherfucking Teresa, Coco the gorilla, the nipple pest. And I also have merch. It's cute as hell. Look at it. Something tells me you look so good in it. And it's my poverty. Anyway, I love you. Stay gay.